put in his budget proposal back in December to reduce the transportation budget by half, and then basically next year to fully remove the transportation budget. Mr. Richards and I started talking with Angie Goki and Transportation Department around looking at our current costs, and I just wanted to do an information item because also the transportation issue then folds into the boundary issue. So just tonight is just an information item from the board to have a chance to have a dialogue and then maybe get some directions moving forward. Currently, our projected costs for transportation this year are $7.5 million. This does not include the No Child Left Behind students that we transport because that's self-funded out of Title I. But this is $7.5 million out of our general fund. Our revenues are only $2.2 million. And then locally we collect about $100,000 in transportation costs from parents from selling our bus passes. So basically the total general fund contribution is $5.3 million. So, or you can call that an encroachment, or fund. So, looking at this and how does it break down? About $1.6 million goes towards regular ed transportation. We spent about $150,000 transporting the students around Delta View. Mount Diablo, about $350,000 from Bay Point to Mount Diablo High School, and then overflow is about another $1.2 million, and then special ed transportation is about $5.9 million. Ridership, we have 1,133 special ed students that receive transportation. This is on a daily basis average. Overflow, about 234 students. Home to school is 678. 400 students take the bus to Mount Diablo High School, and about 279 up to Delta View. And then No Child Left Behind, again, it's self-funded, but we have about 187 students that do No Child Left Behind. Now, it's interesting that there is some commingling on these buses. If we are for overflowing a student and doing No Child Left Behind from one school to another, they will be riding the same bus and things like that. We did also just wanted to find out, around our district, what are districts currently doing. Antioch does offer No Child Left Behind transportation. They currently do offer overflow, but they do not have home to school transportation. They discontinued that in 2007. And Angie, I think they're looking at overflow for the coming year. They haven't made a firm decision, but they are looking at whether or not they'll continue to provide overflow transportation. Martinez Unified currently, I guess, doesn't have any No Child Left Behind transportation that they're providing, but then they also don't do overflow and they don't do home to school. Since 2007, basically, they only do special ed transportation. Pleasanton, again, doesn't offer NCLB, overflow, or home to school, and they only offer special ed transportation. Antioch, Pittsburgh, does do No Child Left Behind, does do overflow, and it does do home to school, but it's phasing it out. Currently, they only offer elementary and middle school, and they're looking to phase out middle school transportation for next year. And then again, I apologize, I doubled up on Martinez. There was another school district there, but San Ramon, again, is a no, and only offering special ed transportation. So the fact that we currently do offer overflow and home to school still, we are in probably the minority of the schools in our area, unified school districts in our area that do that. So just some thoughts at this time that we would like to bring to the board. I have spoken to some other superintendents that actually have brought in FICMAT to do a review of their transportation policies and practices, and they found that FICMAT recommendations have helped them save significant funding. We need to look at changing the board policy on overflow. Currently, the board policy just says we'll provide transportation if you're overflowed, and we may want to look at either just saying we're not going to provide transportation for overflow students, or look at a mileage, saying, if your child is overflowed over 3 miles away or something like that, we would be providing that transportation. Beginning next school year, we no longer provide home to school transportation for Delta View. My understanding is when the school opened, the reason why transportation was provided is because there was no, the street didn't flow through underneath the freeway. Oh, Leland, thank you. Leland did not go all the way through, and so when we've looked back on those records, the transportation, it was said that it would be phased out at some point when Leland went through, and it now does go through. Develop clear policies and procedures for administration to follow when developing 504 and IEP around transportation. We do have Mount Jewel Darlington looking at what other districts are doing and actually creating a procedure manual that we will train our administrators on. In looking at, it's a little bit in the Bay Point area, this area right here is Delta View, and this is the Delta View attendance area, but then on the other side of the 4 we do have 2 attendance areas that we also are looking at. Again, this is with the issue with Delta View that we're confronting is the fact that Delta View is growing in enrollment, and you know, there still is significant housing building going on what would be this side of the freeway. And so what we were thinking of doing is, again, notifying parents that we'd no longer be providing transportation, and then giving parents that live down in these areas, they could still go to Delta View, that's up to them. They'd have to get their own transportation, and if they chose one of or they could choose one of the other schools as their home school. So then they could choose Rio Vista or Shore Acres, which are right here, or they could choose Bel Air. If they chose one of these other schools as their home school, then they would fall under No Child Left Behind, because currently these are PI schools. And then those 2 children, if they chose to, the parents could put in a No Child Left Behind request to go to another school, and then that funding would be paid for out of Title I to pay for that busing. The other idea that we've come up with is that these students over here, because of Bailey Road, could be given the option to choose Ayers as their home school and go to Ayers, and they'd be basically, once they enrolled in Ayers, it wouldn't be an inter-district transfer, because then you could be bounced. Ayers would become their home elementary school, and they'd be able to go to Ayers for all 5 years. But again, that these families then would transport themselves, their children, to Ayers. The goal is to reduce. Right now, currently we have 24. Obviously, it's to save the $150,000 that we pay to transport these students. The other goal would be that we're overflowing 24 students out of Delta View currently, and that's only going to increase based on the increase in housing and so forth and going up in this area. So again, we're trying to look into the future and create a solution now that would save us funding. This is the Meadow Homes area, because out of Meadow Homes, we currently are overflow transporting. Meadow Homes is right here. We're overflowing 153 students out of Meadow Homes. And then Cambridge is right here, and currently we're overflowing 35 students out of Cambridge. The challenge with Meadow Homes is that within this area right here, we have all